On October 6 in 2019 in Clay County, Kentucky, at 12:11 a.m., the forest called my name. Folks here say if you heard it, you didn't. In life, my daughter despised me, and she had every reason to. I hadn't been there for her. I despised me too. After she died, I knew I needed to step up and say goodbye. I owed her that, at least. Amid the deathly silence, the whispers found me. They latched onto me until I became woven in words, a carrier for the plague of prickled secrets. Hiss, hiss, hiss. This is the question. Is this grief making men dig their own graves, or something in tight hollow that writes on your skin and keeps you? On the fourth day of being in Kentucky, the grief claimed Grayson, my daughter's widower. They found him in Tight Hollow Forest, half buried in the waterlogged grave that he had dug for himself. His shirtless body was stained in purple ink. A dismantled fountain pen was lodged inside his mouth. Kentucky State Police blamed his actions on grief. The rainstorm had smudged Grayson's ink scribblings, making them illegible. The police believed what they wanted to believe, and so did I. I knew this went beyond grief. Something had made Grayson do what he did. I was only meant to be staying there for a week. It was enough time to say goodbye to my daughter, Saskia, and make some effort to comfort her kids. And now that Grayson was dead too, I was all they had left. Day one was the funeral. When I arrived for the funeral, Grayson had been quiet but polite. He told me Saskia didn't want a burial. And in the service, I listened as the poplar wooden coffin made its final descent toward the unseen flames, and I imagined them crackling in my head, crackles that morphed into a hiss, a hiss, hiss. A cremation was what my daughter wanted, yet as I imagined her alabaster skin ravaged by flames, I felt the tears threaten to escape. I pushed them back. I know what everyone was thinking. I had no justification to show my grief. On paper, I was Saskia's father, but I hadn't earned that right. I walked out of her life when she was 5. That was my choice. I had no right to be angry at the decisions made by those who had stayed. Some truths don't belong to you, even when they ruin you. That same day, the wake turned the house into a shrine. A small but private home surrounded by hickory trees, it was a shrine to a life that she lived in. Faded, smiley family pictures, her handwritten notes stuck to the fridge, and trinkets I was in no doubt she'd collected. I kept myself to myself, sitting in the corner with a bourbon and feeling like I had no right to be there. I watched Saskia's kids from afar. Their eyes were riddled with grief that they didn't understand as they clung to the mourners that I did not know. For comfort, I was just a stranger, one who struggled to remember their names. I heard it in my head and I imagined it. I couldn't stop imagining it. Saskia's burning alabaster skin becoming a mound of ash that I held no claim to. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Feeling overwhelmed, I went outside to pull myself together and I found myself drawn to the tree line. Trees that combined with the boundaries of Tight Hollow and filtered into pine trees that towered into the clouds. Their house was a doorway into verdant land. I should have felt free, but instead I felt trapped. I sensed someone next to me and I turned to see Grayson, a cigarette in hand. As he smoked, he seemed distracted by the trees. And thinking back on it, there was an uneasiness to him, but I thought little of it at the time. Folks around here say if you heard your name, you didn't, he said to me. I heard it. I heard it coming from the trees. If it gets me, you have to care for them. I kept my eyes on the tree line, a waft of smoke trailing past my face. I thought it was the grief talking. Maybe it was. I nodded, not realizing at the time what I was unknowingly agreeing to. As he walked away, leaving me alone, I heard it. Through the branches, a hiss, hiss, hiss. It sounded like the wind, but different. Whispers too quiet to decipher. It was like a fire without a place. I told myself it was probably just an elk. Sounds contorted in the vastness. Goosebumps formed on the back of my neck. I itched them, telling myself it was nothing. I should have listened to myself back then. I knew it was something, but believing it meant unearthing my old wounds. That night, I left the wake as soon as it seemed okay to do so. Not wanting to intrude, I stayed in the guest house. Cheapest one I could find. Days 2 and 3, I drifted the town and avoided the trees. I didn't go back to the house or make an effort with my grandkids. I just wandered around the town. The all-seeing forests loomed in the distance, reminding me that I wasn't from these parts. But right now, this was where I was trapped. I wanted to run away, my default setting for when times got hard, but I was short on money and I couldn't afford an earlier flight. I swore my ex-partner had moved here to torment me. We lived in Chicago, but when I left, she left too and came here. A small town nightmare that she had thrived in. She was dead too. She died from cancer. It shames me to say that I didn't go to the funeral. Saskia met Grayson young, married, had 3 kids. Just thinking about her made me flinch. Her alabaster skin crackling to dust. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Later that day, the police called. I'd just returned to the guest house when the news came in about Grayson. The old couple who ran it smelled of cough syrup and tobacco. The man looked at me with scrutinizing eyes as he held up the phone receiver and said, "Spencer M. Andrews, I believe it's for you." I knew it was the police. I also knew what they were going to say before they said it. I can't explain why. You know how it feels when you just know something without reason? Maybe it was the look in the old man's eyes, or maybe it was something else. Grayson had drowned in his own grave. Maybe there was something poetic in the madness. By evening, I'd moved into their house. I went to the house and sat with the children beneath the hickory trees. They were orphans now, but despite this, they did not warm to me. The oldest boy, Asher, told me his siblings were his responsibility now, but he begged me to stay for 3 weeks. By then, he turned 18 and could legally care for them. It didn't matter to me what promise I made to Grayson. I would stay the 3 weeks out of guilt, and then I would leave. I moved in that day, and I tried to work out how I would pay for a new flight home. I had nothing to sell. I had nothing of worth in this world. I kept this worry to myself as I wandered around this small house that now felt larger than it was. It was an empty void. And that first night I was there, I struggled to settle on that lumpy couch. I stared outside into the still night, and I spotted the youngest child out there by the tree line, her long fair hair blowing in the breeze. I rushed out to her, determined to bring her back inside to keep her safe. She looked so like Saskia had at her age, the same blonde curls and hopeful eyes. As I reached her, something changed. She changed. I watched her turn into a shadow and simply melted away. I told myself it was my own regret, my own madness. I laughed to myself as I turned around, but the goosebumps formed on the back of my neck, and as I touched them, I heard it through the tree line. "Spencer, we see you. Spencer, we see you in the whispers." I stared through the pine, noting how the branches seemed to dance amid the whispered words. These whispered words that knew my name. Grayson had said something about the whispers, something about them knowing his name. I should have listened to him. I should have sensed his words were a warning instead of just his grief. This was a flaw of mine, always missing the obvious until it was too apparent to ignore. Back inside the house, I found Asher in the kitchen pouring the little girl Saskia's double a glass of water. And as she went back to bed, I said to him, "She looks just like her mother." A silence fell over us, one he eventually broke. "I saw you outside by the tree line. Folks here say that the forest likes to talk in whispers, but if it ever calls your name, you must say it didn't." His serious expression turned to a smile, and I wondered if he knew what I'd heard. I could not burden him with this. He'd lost both of his parents. He didn't need my troubles, too. I wished him good night, and I watched him leave. As I closed my eyes, my skin seemed to itch, an itchiness that changed into a burning of skin shades far lighter than mine. Hiss, hiss, hiss. That night, the ink showed up. I awoke drenched in sweat and itched at my arms. A pen was in my right hand, a fountain pen. My white t-shirt stained purple. Ink covered my arms, absorbed into my naturally tan skin. Ink spelling out words. Whispers. I tried to read them, but they didn't make sense. You know that feeling when your own skin reads like a note that you didn't write? I'd done this to myself, but I didn't know how or why. I scratched at the ink, not knowing what else to do. I scratched until my skin bled, deep red mixed with a constant purple. Something didn't want me there. I didn't want me there, but I couldn't leave Asher or the others. Not yet, anyway. I had no money or means of taking them with me. The truth was they weren't mine to take, but I'd told Asher that for now I would stay. Days passed by and I tried to stay away from that tree line. Regardless of this, the whispers seemed to find me. They seemed to lure me in. Hickory trees gave way to the pines. A series of 7 gentle-leaved stalks evolved into a cluster of countless unforgiving needles. I dreamed of her burning, alabaster skin turning to a crisp, burning flesh now crumbled earth. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Night 5, I woke, needled, pines stuck in my back and a child at the door. When I woke up, pine needles were stuck to my arms and my bare chest. They covered me with malice, embedding into my back where I lay. I stared at myself in disbelief, the pain taking time to catch up with substance. As I yelped in agony, I looked up and I saw her staring at me. The little girl who looked so much like her mother. I pulled the blanket over me so she didn't see the pine needles. I flinched through the pain until she left. Days later, storm night. The ground took my feet. I sank. I found myself out there surrounded by the pine trees, prickles of green gleaming in the dark. At first I made little sense of why I was there and what I was doing. My feet seemed to sink into the ground, lower and lower. I think the whispers were telling me to do it. All I could picture was her alabaster skin charring to nothing. Skin just like her mother's, but not like mine. I didn't want to hear the whispers. Some things should remain secret, even though they were obvious to some and ignored by others. I'd longed so much to believe Saskia was mine, but I knew she was his. I left before my wife could tell me. I left before secrets blossomed into a nightmare. I cried. I wailed. I sank lower and lower into my muddy grave. As the world hissed around me, I saw the flames through the trees. Flames I knew existed only for me. Voices sounded. My name. Now more than a whisper. A whack across my head followed my darkness. My eyes closed and my face hit the mud. It was Asher who found me knee-high in the mud of my man-made grave, shirtless, my arms covered in scribblings written in purple ink, my mouth filled with ink cartridges that spilled down my chin. He had used a branch to knock me out and gathered relatives, strangers, for help. I left as soon as I was well enough to do so. I didn't stay until Asher turned 18. When I think back to that time, I struggle to make sense of it. I know it was more than my grief. Something lured me into the trees with whispers made for me and made me dig my own grave. I don't know why it spared me. All I know is that the folks stuck by their beliefs. If you heard it, you didn't. Now when folks ask, I say I didn't hear it. It's easier that way. But what do you think? The ink says differently. It tells me I'm its carrier. For more scary horror stories, please share and subscribe.